All right, let's dive into a really fascinating puzzle, one that sits right at the heart of how we experience reality. It's a puzzle left behind by one of the greatest thinkers ever, Immanuel Kant. Now, he built this beautiful, logical universe, but as we're about to see, he might have left out the single most important piece of all. So, Immanuel Kant did something absolutely massive. He basically said that space and time aren't things that are just out there in the world. Nope. He said they're more like the operating system of our minds, the basic software we use to perceive, well, everything. But for all its genius, his model had this one huge blind spot. He missed you. And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly why your very existence is the key that unlocks his entire system, turning it from just an abstract map into the living, breathing reality you experience every single day.
Okay, so to really get what's missing, first we have to step inside the world Kant described. It's a truly elegant piece of intellectual architecture for sure, but you'll see it's also kind of empty.
So here's the basic blueprint Kant laid out. He said all of our experience is structured by two fundamental forms. First, there's space. He saw this as the form of side-by-sideness. You know, the stage where everything exists next to everything else. And then there's time, the form of one after another, which is like the script that dictates the sequence of events. The stage and the script. Sounds perfect, right? Covers everything? Or does it? Well, here's the massive problem. A stage is totally useless without a specific viewpoint, a seat in the theater. A script is just a bunch of words without a specific moment of performance. See, Kant gave us this perfect map of reality, but he forgot to include a "you are here" marker. Without that, it's just a meaningless grid, a swamp of coordinates with no here, a flowing river of moments with no now.
And this is where our investigation really kicks off. The very first clue is the most immediate thing any of us have, the one thing that is undeniably here and now, our own body.
You know, a whole field of philosophy called phenomenology really cracked this open. Thinkers like Husserl and Merleau-Ponty, they realized that space isn't just some abstract grid we're floating in. No, it's always organized around us. They called the body the zero point of orientation. And it makes perfect sense, right? Think about it. Words like left, right, up, down, they mean nothing in an empty void. They only get their meaning in relation to your body. Your body is the anchor, the absolute here that gives the entire world its structure.
And what's so fascinating is that this idea, this need for a central anchoring point, it's not just some philosophical quirk. You see it echoing across centuries, across different disciplines, from hard physics all the way to deep mysticism. It seems to be this fundamental pattern in how we make sense of, well, everything.
In physics, we see a version of this with the Big Bang. Now remember, the Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space. It was the origin point of space and time itself. It was this dimensionless singularity from which all of Kant's side-by-sideness and one after another came pouring out. Sound a little familiar?
We see it in metaphysics too. Way back, the Neoplatonists, like Plotinus, talked about the One. They described it as this dimensionless, singular source from which all of reality just emanates, unfolding from a single point into the complex world we know.
And mysticism brings this idea down to a deeply personal level. People like Meister Eckhart wrote about a soul spark, an inner core of our being that is totally untouched by space and time. It's a point of pure presence. Thomas Merton later called it a point of nothingness, right at the center of who we are.
The existentialists had their own take on it too. They talked about kairos. Now this isn't regular clock time, what they called chronos. Kairos is that critical, decisive moment. It's like a singular point that cuts vertically through the horizontal timeline and fills it with meaning and purpose. It's that moment of choice, of decision.
So let's recap. We've got clues from our own bodies, from the beginning of the cosmos, from ancient metaphysics, and from our deepest spiritual and existential experiences. They all seem to be pointing directly at the same missing piece in Kant's grand puzzle. So what is it?
The missing ingredient, the third piece that goes right alongside space and time, is something we can call punctual identity. It's the principle of the point.
But it's absolutely crucial to understand this. We're not talking about a little geometric dot on a map. Punctual identity isn't a point in space. It's the underlying function that makes the very idea of a point possible in the first place. It's the mental act of creating a center, of drawing a boundary, of creating a here and a now, where before there was just a uniform, meaningless swamp.
So what does this thing actually do? Well, you can think of it as having 5 core jobs. First, it anchors us. It creates the here and the now. Second, it individuates. It's what carves up the seamless flow of reality into distinct things, like this coffee cup or that person. Third, it identifies. It's what lets you see the person you met yesterday as the same person today. Fourth, it creates events, those singular moments of change. And finally, and maybe most importantly, it founds meaning. A rock falling is just physics. Add a third point, an interpreter, you, and suddenly you have meaning, purpose, a story.
So adding this third element isn't just some minor academic tweak to Kant's philosophy. It fundamentally changes everything. It's the key that makes the whole engine of reality as we experience it finally turn over.
And this is where all our clues just click into place. It's that aha moment. Phenomenology finds this anchor in our body, German idealism finds it in the self-aware I, metaphysics sees it as the source of reality itself, and modern physics runs smack into it at the very edge of space-time with things like singularities and the mysterious role of the observer. All these different fields across all this time were describing the exact same fundamental function, just using different languages.
See, punctual identity isn't just a nice little add-on. It's the third pillar holding up the entire structure of our experience. It is the missing link that connects Kant's abstract, empty forms of space and time to the concrete, centered and meaningful world that you and I actually live in.
So here it is, the complete architecture of experience. Kant gave us the form of where, which is space, and the form of when, which is time. But punctual identity gives us the crucial form of that, the fundamental assertion of existence, of a centered here-now I that makes the other two forms relevant in the first place.
So if you take one thing away, let it be this. If Kant's space is the canvas and his time is the paint flowing in a continuous stream, then punctual identity, your centered awareness, your act of being right here, right now, is the brushstroke. It is the singular decisive act that touches the canvas, makes a mark, and transforms an abstract potential into an actual picture. Without that brushstroke, there's no art. There's no experience. There's no world. There's only an empty canvas.